Hello everyone, and welcome back to Deeper Grooves, Musicians on Music, hosted by Cliff Beach and sponsored by California Soul Music record label. We've had so many great guests on the podcast so far, and today's is no different. Today we have the privilege and honor of speaking with Eric Boulanger, a violinist and mastering engineer based in Los Angeles and owner of the Bakery Mastering Studio on the Sony lot in Culver City. Please help me welcome Eric. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Awesome. It's nice to be able to get to talk to you. I think I've seen you multiple times in passing, but just here and there. It's always like ships passing in the night.
Yeah, exactly. And,
That makes sense, though. It's like, why would, while one of you is occupying the space, another of you can be doing something else. So.
Oh, exactly.
That makes sense. Well, awesome. Yeah, I was very, I just love the studio. As you know, I've had a few things mastered there in the last year, and just knowing the history of it, how it came to be, obviously an amazing location, just in general, but just getting to know more about you, really kind of having this dichotomy of kind of two careers, really, in a way, both being a performer, as a string instrument player, and then also as a mastering engineer. So just kind of wanted to kind of learn more about you and your career track and kind of, how you got started in the business.
Sure. It's funny because, you're not the first one to say or mention the dichotomy aspect, but the funny part is, to me, it makes perfect sense and really isn't much of a dichotomy. It's all the pursuit of making music for the most part. If there's anything I actually enjoy most about specifically being a violinist and then a mastering engineer is when I'm playing, very obviously I'm at the very start of the process, and then obviously when I'm mastering, I'm at the very end. So that's always kind of fun to see the full spectrum of a project. And also, it's rather good for me because, if I were to be mixing it or mixing something that I was playing on, it would be a little bit distracting having the multi-tracks of, like, what I played. And, I'd probably just want to be listening to that. So, it's enough of a separation where, the fact that you played on it isn't going to distract or dissuade you from what you really need to do. But I suppose to get back to your original question about my career and how I started and everything was, for whatever reason, my parents put the violin in my hands when I was 3 years old. And so I studied music my whole life, between private lessons and orchestras and sitting at Juilliard. And then come college age, I always kind of had a techie fascination side to me, but even growing up, but nothing really all that serious, certainly not as serious as I was studying music. And so come college age, for whatever reason, I stepped into a recording studio and instantly fell in love with it. And so through college, I was studying, wanted to study recording, really. Anything that would keep me in a recording studio was going to keep me happy. And as I was, taking the few classes that they actually offered in recording, I kind of noticed that everyone in the room, they were all engineer majors and like barely any musicians. And I'm like, well, I've got music down way better than anyone else here. Let's fight off the other end of things. So that's when I switched into electrical engineering, and that's what I actually studied while constantly staying in the studio somehow. So I kind of bit off both ends a little bit too aggressively than usual. And so come junior year in college, I came out for a summer and a few months to intern at Capitol Studios. So that was my first big break. Believe it or not, I was actually the first ever intern at Capitol Studios. Of course, the record label always had interns, but for whatever reason, the studios down below never did. And I managed to talk it into Paula to let me intern there. And it was through that I got to really mentor under Al Schmidt. And then when I went back to finish up my degree, after that, I moved back out to California, and now I needed a job. And doing a free internship doesn't really pay the bills. And,
no, it doesn't.
So it was Al who got me in touch with Doug, who happened to be looking for someone at the time. And the rest is history from there. So, the funny part was, at no point in time did I ever really think that I was going to do mastering. In fact, my head was more in mixing. Because, of course, it's the most creative end of engineering. It's a lot of fun. And I just never thought about ever doing mastering. But the fact of the matter is, when you move out to L.A. and Al Schmidt tells you to go interview for Doug Sax, if you don't get in the car, you should just go back to where you came from and quit.
Exactly.
So,
and for people that don't necessarily know these titans of the industry, can you explain just a little bit about Al and about Doug and the work that they have done or had done in their career? Basically,
they've recorded all of mankind. Obviously, for the listeners, all you have to do really is look them up and look up their credits. It's just astronomical. And for the majority of their careers, they worked intensively together. Doug was definitely Al's go-to mastering engineer. Whenever he had the control over it, he'd go to Doug. Of course, there's times where producers or artists, or he's only mixing a few tracks as opposed to an entire album, where that may change. But he and Doug worked together basically on everything. It was ridiculous. And so now, especially being as though I'm mentored under him, it's kind of come full circle. And now being Al's guy is really a huge honor.
Yes, it definitely is. And you have, in your own right, branched out on your own, creating your own thing. Do you think that kind of where you guys were situated, I know that Doug is no longer with us, having that Ojai situation in the studio, did that influence any of the things that you were doing, being so close to LA, but yet kind of set apart from it in a way? Do you think that had anything to do with the success that was coming out of there?
It has everything to do with it. I learned everything from Doug. So, yeah, I wouldn't be here without that.
So let's talk about some of the stuff that you've done. So you worked on a ton of Grammy-winning and nominated projects, including works with Green Day, Hozier, Selena Gomez, Colbie Caillat, One Republic, Eric Burden, obviously. A lot of people, we know him from Ojai, and his work with the Animals, Imagine Dragons, Neil Young. There's a laundry list of different projects, and still working on tons of projects daily at your studio at the bakery. So do any of these names or projects that you worked on kind of stick out in your mind? Do you have any that are wow, that's really my favorites? And then what was it like winning these type of awards? Obviously, I'm sure you're not necessarily going out to master albums, to win Grammys, but you did. So for people that haven't won that and had that experience, what is that like?
Yeah. So sticking out in terms of projects, definitely Colbie's first record sticks out because it was when I first started with Doug. And so, I was very young. Colbie and I think her birthday is a month or two before mine. And so, she was starting her career, and as was I, and then, lands this massive hit and, blows up after that. And so, it's been fun kind of having with her parallel careers. I suppose another one that would have stuck out was the Eric Burden record, just because it was so fun and iconic. And Eric is such a character. And, you know, that summer, we ended up becoming friends. And when his wife was out of town in Greece, you know, I just get this random phone call. And Burden's voice is so unmistakable, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, Eric. I'm like, hi, Eric. And he's like, this is Eric Burden. I'm like, yes, I know. I just said hi, Eric. And he's like, do you like the pub? I'm like, it's the Pub Catholic. He's like, I'll meet you there. And so it was like what I thought was going to be, you know, a day of hard work and attending to projects and everything. I totally neglected my duties and went to the pub with Eric Burden and had like such a great time. So it was really fun. I mean, certainly that's easily one of the best parts of the job is just the social aspect with, you know, great people, both famous and not. So I really enjoy that. And that was also, you know, the main reason behind setting up at the Sony Pictures Shop, because, you know, if you want to think of this business-wise, you know, of course, if you did the buy a house thing and turn your garage into a studio, it's far more economical of a business model than just, you know, leasing out a really expensive studio on a major motion picture lot. But I did this because, you know, I thrive on that social aspect of, because we're making music. We're not just, you know, just because you can download Pro Tools or whatever and do things out of your bedroom doesn't mean that that's what you're actually doing. So, you know, having this space instantly has gotten so many more people to come in and be more involved with making their record, and I just love that. I mean, especially like with Green Day, when, you know, I grew up listening to their records and loving every single thing about it. I mean, hell, American Idiot was a record that I damn near like studied the sound of when I was getting into recording and mixing and mastering. And there we are, you know, Green Day's in the room with me working on their album. It's like, really kind of takes you for a trip, which they start answering your second question about like the whole Grammy thing is, like awards are great. Yeah, you don't walk into the studio every morning thinking, this is the morning I'm only going to work on a Grammy winner. Like, if it were that easy, then it'd be great. But I mean, you have no idea what's going to go on. Like, you also have no idea, you know, how popular it'll be or not. I mean, obviously, if you personally like it, you can get excited about it. But I've worked on so many great albums that I love and still listen to on my own that were, for all intents and purposes, flops. And in fact, funny enough, referring to my other side in playing violin and on film scores and everything, I think my favorite moment ever was working on Jurassic Park, I think it was 4 or something, getting to, you know, replay the original Jurassic Park teams. And because, you know, growing up, hearing all of these scores and iconic music and studying the violin, it's like the first thing that goes through your head is like, holy shit, what must it have been like to be there in that studio making this come to life? And fast forward to now where I'm actually doing this, and it's amazing. Also, side note, very convenient when the gig is at Sony because I just have to walk across the sidewalk. I mean, aside from that, the thing that I realize is it's like anything else. Like every single day you walk on the scoring room stage and you have music put up in front of you. The fact of the matter is no one knows what this is going to be. Is it going to be a blockbuster? Is it not? you don't know until it's out there. And I've played so many incredible scores, incredible music and everything, and it virtually goes nowhere just because success of the film or, whatever factors end up going into that. And so it's kind of weird because every time you're performing a score for the first time like that, typically recite reading, it all kind of feels the same because you might love the music. A lot of times you hate the music. But either way, there's that air of you don't know what you're doing yet. But when I was doing Jurassic Park, there were so many of the original musicians there even. It was in the same, it was at Sony, playing it in the same space. And iconic music that, has been ingrained in your head. And so, it was like while I was sitting there playing everything, I was literally thinking to myself, I'm like, well, this is as close as it's going to get to that like original childhood dream of what is this like, because it's one of the few times that you'd be able to do something iconic and something that you grew up on and then do it in the real environment.
Sure. And isn't music in that way when they do it for film scores, isn't it almost kind of rushed? Like, don't they do that like the very, very end of film and post?
Typically the very last step. And that's because everything has the final cut has to be made. Like they certainly don't want to start scoring or composing music, for in between scenes or interludes or things that have to match the action on the screen when when they change the edit and then you'd have to recompose everything. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's usually the very last step because you have to wait for final cut. And about the only thing that's a little bit different is animation. When we do that, a lot of times, I don't know what the technical term is, but it looks like stick figures on the screen. Yeah. And the storyline and the edits and everything, all of that has been decided and that's set in stone. But since rendering things and doing computer animation is so time-consuming, sometimes it's just not done yet.
You definitely wear many hats between being the artist, performing, actually playing violin, and then also as a mastering engineer, but then you also wear a hat of being the actual founder, owner of the bakery. So do you think there's like any lessons that you've learned now going through the process of starting your own thing that, in hindsight, you would say, man, I would have done this differently, or I wish I knew this when I was starting earlier?
Well, there's no question. You learn a lot real fast. I haven't really run into any particular regret in running the business. But certainly, like most businesses, the grandest pain in your ass is this little thing called taxes. If there was anything that I actually think I did right, I mean, my accountant might say otherwise, but and if there's any advice that I could give people starting their own businesses and whatnot, it's just to go for it, because the fact of the matter is, if you waste time and money trying to cover every single little detail of opening the business perfectly on paper, first of all, what you'll find out is how few people actually fully collectively know anything comprehensive about requirements of any business. I mean, it was outstanding to me how, like, so many professionals could be just that daft and dumb. So the fact of the matter is, what I did and what I would recommend any other young entrepreneur would be, just open the damn thing. Make the mistakes. It's better to, have that car rolling down the hill first. You make the mistakes, and, so long as, business is coming in, then you'll have the money to fix the mistakes. It's kind of hard to do everything perfectly anyway. So, you're going to make mistakes one way or another. You might as well not spend all your money up front on trying to avoid what's inevitable, you know?
Of course. So that makes sense to me. And then would you say, like, thinking about your career, you know, being able to play for Jurassic Park and some of these themes that are just so iconic and well known, and then also being able to work with all of these great artists and win Grammys, to be mentored by two titans of the industry, do you feel like you almost have like this storybook type, like everything fell into place, or would you say like you did have like some either doubt or problems that you kind of worked through? Or do you think it just kind of happened?
Well, everything kind of just happened for sure, but and it is fairy tale like, you know, even looking back myself. But yeah, along the way, I mean, it's constant doubt. If you're not doubting yourself, whether it be your engineering wise, like, I mean, still to this day, I will still get at least one client, one project a year where I can't get them happy. Nothing pans out. They think it all sucks, and I'm there going home wondering if I've lost it. Should I keep doing this? You know, you're always going to have those cases, and you just have to know that that's just part of life. But the fact of the matter is, if you never doubt yourself, then you can't. I don't think you'd make it in this business because it is so competitive, and if you don't doubt yourself, then you're just resting on your laurels, and someone's gonna drive by you.
Yeah, no, they most certainly will. And I think that's why the greatest people are lifelong learners and constantly trying to improve. They never feel that they've gone the best. I've talked to a lot of artists and people on the podcast that say, you know, they don't even look back at their back catalog because they're only looking forward to like the projects that are in front of them and what they want to do for the future, because they feel like they still have so much more to give and to do. And so with that, is there anyone, like, since you've worked with so many people, is there anyone you haven't worked with yet that you would like to work to if you had the opportunity?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people, especially Peter, who's sitting behind me right now, is going to make fun of me. But yeah, but I almost want to kick him out of the room so I can say this and without impunity. But I've always been a huge Coldplay fan, and fuck anyone who makes fun of me for it. So I'll say Coldplay.
That's okay. You're not in bad company. I'm sure there's tons of fans and people that would want to work with Coldplay if they had the chance.
Yeah.
And they have some amazing records. I mean, some sonically larger than life records, and still more, I'm sure, to come. But I think that's still definitely doable. I see no reason why not. Are there any lesser known people that you work with that you're like, man, people really slept on that recording that we did or something that we mastered that was like much better than maybe
Cliff Beach. Let me see here. Well, I don't know if this is fair for your question because it's not actually out yet, so it could hit. But as of recently, an artist, I believe she's Australian, that just knocks me away is this new artist named Tassia Zappia. That's Tassia, and then Zappia, Zapia. And I think that counts enough, something to look out for. And I don't think anything's been released just yet, but I guarantee you it's good.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to keep our ears out and check it out. We're always wanting to hear new music and you know, for me, just because something doesn't have a ton of plays doesn't mean it's not amazing. I think you can't, just like that, everything, you know, that wins a Grammy or doesn't win a Grammy could still be amazing. I think it's very subjective in that way. So it's not really kind of the only way to tell. But you guys do a lot of work with vinyl, and I kind of wanted to get a pulse and a sense on, mastering for vinyl. Like, how do you feel about vinyl, its resurgence, and then how it fits into the digital world? Because a lot of us are on Spotify, on Apple Music, things like that. But vinyl, still it's an old medium, but people still respect it, and a lot of people still are buying it. So how do you feel that fits into a 2020 lens?
Well, I'm going to definitely answer this question because it's very appropriate, and start off by also specifically answering your last question, particularly with and the vinyl I was incredibly proud of that I made. But there's this band from Mali, and forgive me, everyone, if I'm brutalizing how this is pronounced. We always said Tina Rewin. I have no idea how you pronounce it because, it's they, for the most part, speak like a form of French over there, but like I can't even understand it. But it's very, very African driven, like beats type at the core, and trying to remember the album name. Maybe I can look it up here. Multitask, Eric.
And do you feel like your approach to the mastering or to the music changes, because that would be like a very drastic style of music change to some of the other things you work with?
Oh yeah, it always morphs from whatever comes in on the plate, and in fact, that's actually my favorite part about mastering, which I ended up falling in love with. Can't believe that I never considered that before, but the thing I love is just, I have professional ADD, and being able to work on a new project, like a new album every single day is just great. Like, I couldn't imagine working on the same thing for a month if you're like a mixer, like God forbid you're tracking engineering, you're working on it even longer. Oh man, I'd hang myself. That's just me. Anyway, the album title is Elwan, which, if I remember correctly, means elephant. Yeah, Elwan by Tina Rewin, Tinariwen. If any of the listeners here actually know how to pronounce this, please give me a call. But it was a fantastic album.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to look that up and to check it out. Tina Rewin and Elwa. That sounds cool. It sounds, especially because it sounds very eclectic. Something I love hearing things that. Oh,
this one's eclectic. Yeah. So getting back now to the vinyl and the 21st century conversation, I always say this, and maybe one of these days people will start realizing it. But the thing that really makes all this make sense about how vinyl's come back in such a strong resurgence, which, mind you, and at least the statistics are, that the vast majority of consumers of new vinyl being made are teenagers. And it's, everything seems to be like, you read in the magazines and whatnot, how, like, the journalists always make this spin on, oh my God, this is shocking. Like, everything about vinyl is like the thing that no one could have guessed. And, to a certain degree, okay, fine. Maybe you couldn't guess it, but the reason for it is so blatantly obvious and in front of everyone's face, which is we don't sell formats, we sell experiences. And the vinyl format is the only thing that forces you to have an adequate listening experience. I mean, when everyone says that vinyl sounds better, I would really, first of all, I'm one of the few people who could actually compare that because I'm the one making it. What went in to making the vinyl, if you were to compare that directly to what came off the press, it's still a generation later, So it's kind of tough to say that vinyl's specifically just better. But the main thing about the experience is vinyl's greatest virtue is its greatest downfall. You can't go jogging with it, can't play it in the car.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you time to acquire the album, right? You need to go to the store or nowadays buy it off Amazon or something, and you finally get the record. You get home after work, open up the packaging. You're going to need a record player, which is probably plugged into these things called speakers that are larger than your cell phone in your living room. And you put the record down. You have to drop it at track 1 and listen through the whole side. And as you do that, you're cracking open your beer, walking back to your couch, sitting on your couch with the artwork and listening through the album and having a fantastic time. Now, I ask you, like, when people say, like, vinyl sounds better, well, of course it sounds better. You're in such a mood to be doing that listening, it's not even funny. And vinyl forces you to do that. When have you ever done that with anything else?
Never. Never have I loaded up my Spotify and watched it as it changed from track to track, drinking my beer.
Right. So I think that's the thing that really, it's just downright obvious. And, you know, certainly I don't see vinyl being around forever. There certainly already are better formats, but what I think the industry really needs to focus on more with the other formats is delivering this experience. And, you know, that's kind of a cultural question mark, and figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think whoever does
maybe
just make a lot of money.
Outlaw shuffle.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you definitely consume it in a different way than you normally would. So then, speaking of experiences, for my last question before I let you go, Eric, is what would be the Eric experience? What would you want to be remembered for? What is your legacy?
The Eric experience. Oh boy. You're really coming out with the hard hitters here. Well, I don't want to be turned into a Confederate statue. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that will get removed at some point.
Yeah. Sorry, couldn't help myself there. Well, I suppose my career and everything. You know, another aspect of my career that I've really enjoyed, and particularly because of being a mastering engineer, has been being able to work on developing, whether it be software or hardware or a mixture of both. Most notably, what I did was pioneering mastered for iTunes, and you know, being able to work with Apple on that was an amazing experience and whatnot. And you know, that's one really fun aspect of mastering, because since we're at the end of the line, you know, we're for better or for worse, technically there's only one place on earth that the music or the recording, whatever it is absolutely 100% right. And that's in my chair, because the second everyone approves and we put our stamp of approval on it and we ship it out, like obviously on every other system or whatever, it may sound different, or people may be playing it improperly. You don't know, but the fact of the matter is, like, we're at the end of the line. And so kind of because of that, and also, of course, because mastering engineers will have a way larger body of work than any other engineer, just by virtue of the fact that, I mean, we've got the easiest job and it's the most plentiful one. You know, we work on so many projects. It kind of gives us kind of a false acclaim in a way, but is something of value to you know, especially someone like Apple, who is dealing with the entirety of anything ever recorded. So we're the closest people to who actually do that for them. So legacy-wise, I really do enjoy being able to work on those types of projects, which kind of tie into what I was talking about vinyl, which is delivering an experience. So if there's anything, I suppose it would be whatever I end up doing there. And there's certainly, it's not just stopping at mastered for iTunes.
Nice. Well, that's great. It's great to see you wearing so many hats. Great to see you being able to toggle your time between business owner, creator, and inventor, making new processes. All of your degrees and education kind of wrapped all into one. So I guess it is a storybook fairy tale in a way, but also a lot of hard work and sweat equity and, really using your mind to its full capacity and body as well. So that's cool to watch, just, from an outside person looking in, just being inspired. And I'm sure some of our listeners will be inspired as well. So thank you again for coming on and chatting with us. We'll obviously circle back to you once it's done and out so that you can hear it and send you all the links and stuff like that. But hopefully
that'll be great. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate those kind words, too.
Of course. Hopefully when everything clears up, I'm able to actually come over to the lot and take you guys out again.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was kind of, when I was discussing the whole reason for opening the studio here in the expensive Sony lot and, having the nice studio and all, it's that, when we show up to the studio now, we're not allowed visitors right now because of the coronavirus thing, and we have these special passes to be, you have to be on a special list just to be granted access to your office, and they take your temperature and all this kind of crap. It's crazy.
I grew up in the 80s. They had record thermometers. They're not doing that anymore.
That's what I got at my house, too, like good old mercury. But, the infrared things are like you get shot in the head, and 1 second later they know how hot you are.
That's crazy.
A little bit quicker than old school.
But probably more accurate in a way.
I was going to say it's probably less accurate, but I mean, I think they've been saying something like, a lot of places in LA, they've been talking about opening some sporting events and maybe certain concerts or something like that. And so this would be a part of it. It's something like if your temperature is over 100. So it's like you're probably going to be sweating before you this thing even tells you anything accurate.
Ah, well, yeah, that's true. Well, I think they're going to try to make some kind of Spinal Tap pods for musicians. So we're all like in our own little private bubble, and the audience is kind of in their own little bubbles.
Yeah.
But hopefully it gets better. At least you guys are still able to access your stuff and to be able to continue working, because I think ultimately I always keep telling people that good and good music will prevail, and I think as we need hope and something to look forward to, getting more content and more music out there, there's no better time. Especially now, people have more time to listen to vinyl too.
I mean, it's always amazing too how dramatic people get about all of this, especially in the middle of the quarantine and whatnot. They're like, "Oh, music's done for," blah blah blah. I'm like, what drugs are you on? Like, there is no way possible that music will ever go away. The only way music goes away is mass extinction, which maybe coronavirus will do, but
yeah,
that's only when.
But even then, something will.
I mean, even if it was a zombie apocalypse, I bet you the zombies would still be listening to music.
Yes, but what would they listen to? Maybe the zombies. I don't know. It's always something, but it's like nothing has totally died. Matter can't be created or destroyed. It just changes. Everything changes, but it still somehow in some medium exists.
Yeah.
Awesome, Eric. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and hopefully I'll be chatting to you again real soon.
Likewise. I hope you can make it by when all of this is beyond us.
All right. Well, 2022.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for today.
Thank you. Tell everybody I said hello, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
I will. Bye.
All right, bye. Thanks for listening once again to Deeper Grooves, Musicians on Music, hosted by Cliff Beach and sponsored by California Soul Music record label. I would like to thank our special guest, Eric Boulanger from The Bakery, to speak with us today about all of his many achievements, as well as our engineer, Tim Hall, in 1192 Studios in Westlake Village, California, for mixing and mastering this recording. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, you can visit us online at www.californiasoulmusic.com/deeper grooves. Until then, keep the music alive and take care.